Welcome back to the real, the one and only Civ Battle Royale. We're up to part 89, Eye of the Beholder. My name is Dawkinzz, so let's get right into it. Narrating this week's episode is none other than Admiral Cloudberg, the R-Civ AI Games fixture, CBR Power Ranker, and author of the Plane Crash series on r/catastrophic failure. To kick off today's part, we have the one, the only, the great fan BR, notorious shitposter, and this shitpost is mighty stinky, the defeat of Jing Lang from Assassin's Creed, only with Song Seng Gampo's face photoshopped onto the assassin. I can only assume that Jing Lang is standing in for one of the Trung sisters. As always, we have the fantastic tile-accurate-ish map by Spherical Melon, where the biggest change since the beginning of last part is all that extra orange in Arabia. The Boers continue to hold the top spot in the power rankings 2 parts after briefly losing it to the Inuit. As long as Kruger continues to gobble up Vietnamese cities in Arabia, he should stay there for quite some time. We start off with, you guessed it, more declarations of war against Tibet. Among the aggressors this time around are the Boers, which should make Song Seng Gampo slightly concerned. More concerned if I could spell his name or say it correctly. After all, it's now clear that Kruger's declaration of war against Vietnam was the first step in a vast effort to finally eliminate the true enemy of the Civ Battle Royale, Tibet. But even the most hardcore Boer fans know that they should have a hard time believing that Kruger can conquer that far away. Our first look at the embattled Middle East reveals that there's a lot going on. The Boers appear to have flipped Gyumri, but for the moment Vietnam has reasserted control over the city. Additionally, Sweden has begun to bombard Tigran, but it's not clear that they'll be able to reach it due to all of the Vietnamese and Icelandic units in the way. But the espionage notification reveals that Gustavus has come up with a potential way around this obstacle: an attack on Armenia. Armenia would fall quickly and possibly open up the way to more Finnish cities. Basically, Armenia is just waiting to be snacked upon by either the Boers, Vietnam, or who knows, maybe even Finland, but we'll see. And now it's time to move to the spies. I'm not exactly sure where they all were before, but they are now headed to Yerevan, Kanaohe, Yeredo, Sixikawa, and Port Royale. It seems Koyot, oh boy, is a fan of observing capitals of rump states and minor powers, with the exception of Sixikawa, the major great power of North America. A quick view of the Boer coast reveals a huge army of robot infantry and biotroopers that have poured into the Horn of Africa. Nevertheless, Vietnamese planes continue to bombard Khorasan, Kufa, and Basra into the black, and the Trung sisters have sent a cyber sub armed with 2 nuclear missiles to back them up. It's not going to look good for them. Some eagle-eyed Babylonians noticed last part that the Boers had nuked Pasgarde. Could those nukes be on their way to launch a retaliatory strike? I sure hope so, because the only orange and shit I want to see is from nuclear fallout all over Africa, but I'm not biased at all in that regard. The Boers have also rolled into Baghdad, surprising no one. It's also possible to see the damage inflicted on Pasgarde by the nuclear strike. The city has lost a lot of population and has taken a non-trivial amount of damage as well. Further north, the situation is only slightly less dire. As mentioned earlier, Gyumri has flipped, and Artashat, although well defended, has been bombarded into the red. More bombing runs, possibly from Sibir, are damaging Ekbatana and Ghazni. On the perpetually bloody Sibir-Vietnam front, the Trung sisters are using planes to bombard Herat, Samarkand, and Jalmandagar Buru, while Sibir has Kabul in the black and is poised to capture Nishapur. Good luck to them. And further along the front, despite Siberian bombing raids against Urgench, Vietnam has recaptured Bomda. Although I can't confirm this fact beyond a reasonable doubt, Sibir appears to have lost its open borders with Finland, severely hampering their efforts to bring reinforcements into the area. And for the final shot of this part, just kidding, it's just for turn 31, we get a bird's eye view of the former Canadian Corps. It's chock full of advanced robot infantry and biotroopers, forming a fearsome carpet that could tear apart the Blackfoot without too much trouble. No. The power rankers even joked that the Inuit could possibly take over the Buccaneers with air power and embarked units alone. And after seeing this, I don't think that's an exaggeration. Moving on to turn 32, we get another view of the Middle East battlefields. While the situation on the Boer-Vietnam front hasn't changed appreciably, Sweden has bombarded Tigranasrta down to the red and is damaging Hebron as well. As you may have seen in the previous slide, the Bucks have joined the war against Tibet. At this rate, it won't be long before the only civ not at war with Tibet is Vietnam, Tibet's best friend. Apparently we're getting stat slides for the Bucks and Tibet. The Buccaneers are between 9th and 12th in all relevant categories, which is skewed slightly higher than their usual position of 12th in the power rankings. It is somewhat promising for the Bucks that they are punching above their weight in science output though. Tibet, on the other hand, ranks between 18th and 20th in every category except Treasury. This is completely in line with their treatment by the power rankers, not to mention that they're at war with just about everyone. Our favorite spy, Agent M, reports that Sejong is plotting to finish off Taigen Der Khan. As a Yakut fan, all I can say is please kill him already. Another spy reveals that Genghis Khan is plotting to help finish off Urho-Kekkonen. However, without open borders with Sibir or Vietnam, a declaration of war between the two civs would accomplish very little. I would also like to point out that the strength discrepancy of Mongolia's cities and units compared with Sibir's means that a war between them would almost certainly end in a Siberian victory, even if Genghis manages to take a city or two initially. Our turn 32 overview of the Vietnamese Sibir front reveals that the Trung sisters have completely secured Bomda but have lost Nishapur. It's like playing whack-a-mole only with cities and people's lives. Farther west along the front, not much has changed, although Sibir does have a good opening to capture Ghazni. And for some reason we get to see the Middle East a second time, only with the Afghan machine gun in Hebron highlighted. Hawaii also has a unit chilling between the Tigris and the Euphrates. The Arabian Peninsula seems to be entirely under Boer control with no sign of a Vietnamese counterattack. In just a few turns, Kruger has overrun these 5 cities and secured their defense with incredible speed. Could Vietnam be in much deeper trouble than we initially suspected? And little has continued to change off the Boer coast, but Vietnam has sent its nuclear-armed cyber sub right up next to Kufa. I really can't say that this is a good idea, guys. The Vietnamese Navy is mostly concentrated on the eastern edge of the Bay of Bengal, but it's almost all carriers and cyber subs anyway. Even if they moved it to the Boer front, it would mostly serve to just get in the way. Meanwhile, a stray Australian fleet is coming up the north coast of Brazil, presumably to launch a counterattack against the Buccaneers. I would say that this fleet is much too small to capture even a single city, but it is important to note how rare it is for an AI to send a fleet this far at all. Oh my god. And what is possibly the greatest betrayal of the Civ Battle Royale, Vietnam has declared war on Tibet. Lhasa is immediately bombarded down to the red, and within 2 or 3 turns, Vietnamese units should be knocking at the city gates. Sweden has joined in for shits and giggles, but this looks to be a stab in the back. Anyway, back to our usual programming. A few Boer ships and planes are attacking Kolomnai, but there's no sign of any melee units that could capture the city. There's not much worth reporting over here, but it is worth noting that Vietnam's Air Force is able to keep Kufa, Khorasan, Basra, Baghdad, Nazran, and Vang Tao consistently in low red or black HP. I predict that these cities will be reduced down to 1 population after they flip back and forth between Vietnam and the Boers for a foreseeable future. Further north, the Boers have begun a major push into the Fertile Crescent. A biotrooper stands at the gates of Pasgarda, a city many of us were sure Vietnam would be able to defend. The Vietnamese army around Artashat has also disintegrated. If this keeps up, the Boers could be sweeping through Persia by this time next part. On the various Anatolian fronts, however, little appears to have changed, although Sweden does have a few units approaching Tigranasrta. Among them is a pair of railgun armors, which have a lot of movement points and could potentially be what lets Sweden take the city. On the Vietnam-Sibir front, again, everybody take a shot. The Trung sisters have rushed to defend Ghazni, and it appears safe for now. However, they still haven't been able to take back Nishapur. Here's a closer look at Nishapur, which only confirms what I just said. And I guess everybody take another shot? Because now that's the thing. Anytime we get a clip of Vietnam's Sibir front, you take a drink. Ooh, we're gonna get drunk. And apparently we get another look at Bomda too. Can I just take this opportunity to say, can we please get fewer screenshots of this war? Maybe one per turn? Thanks. Meanwhile, the Australian fleet has disintegrated before even reaching Buccaneer waters. Good job, guys. A carrier is taking heavy damage and several ships appear to be missing entirely. Perhaps they were on their way through the Bermuda Triangle, which, come to think of it, I don't think is even anywhere near where they are. They just must have sunk due to incompetency. Great job. But wait, there's more! A much larger fleet of carriers, submarines, and embarked units is making its way around Brazil as we speak. And yet more units are just now leaving the Pacific. One would think that all of these units would be a lot more effective if they were sent at the same time. Oh my, this is unexpected. Brazil has been at war with Texas for some time, but this is the first time Brazil has sent any units to attack Laredo. The city has been bombarded into the red, and a Brazilian power armor infantry lurks just 3 tiles away. But can it navigate the maze of enemy units, mountains, ocean, and hostile borders to eliminate Texas once and for all? I'm not exactly sure what this slide is for, considering that there isn't a war going on here, and we saw this same area last part. But I guess it's worth pointing out that the Boers have annexed much of the Sahara and now have rings of powerful units around many of the cities here. Here we get a rare view of the Western Mediterranean. I would strongly advise Ingolfur of Iceland to fortify these cities because right now, a declaration of war by the Boers would be devastating. Even though they are distracted with Vietnam, they're that powerful. Also of note, Sweden has a cargo ship here, although its origin and destinations are unknown. Iceland's holdings in Italy and the Balkans are much better protected, but there's one key problem. Ingolfur hasn't reached the most advanced tier of units yet, and a Boer attack could probably rip through this area very quickly like it has been in Arabia. The Blackfoot sign a research agreement with the Civ whose capital they control. Although you'd think Kamehameha would be a bit salty, they're apparently on good terms. The World Congress met this turn and unanimously decided to reject our proposal of natural heritage sites. This, of course, why we always propose it, because the AI won't pass it, and therefore Babylon's influence on the game is kept to an absolute minimum. The other World Congress resolution to embargo nation-states, in other words dead civs, was passed. This is ironic considering that none of the nation-states have any cities in which trade routes can occur or be sent. All Vietnamese units appear to have been cleared from the area around the Horn of Africa. It's not clear if the Trung sisters ever got to launch those nuclear missiles, though. Boer ships continue to attack Kolomnai, but no progress can be made without a melee unit, which they still don't have. On the Middle Eastern front, Vietnam has suffered a major blow with the loss of Passagarde. The city is poised to flip back again, but it probably won't take long for the Boers to assume complete control. Resistance is futile. Gyumri is also in dire straits as several Boer biotroopers approach from the south. How long can it hold out? And nearby, 2 heavily damaged Swedish railgun armors are approaching Tigranasrta, but Finland should be able to kill both of them, unless Sweden moves first, which might well be the case. Oh boy, another shot of the Vietnamese-Siberian War. Guess what? Drink. Guess what? Again, not much has changed. Farther north, Sibir still holds Nishapur and is making a push for Urgench, but the city may be too well defended for them to capture. I'm gonna have to do another drink. And finally, Sibir has either renegotiated open borders with Finland or never lost them in the first place, and Siberian biotroopers are once again pouring toward Bomda, which is very lightly defended. Drink. Brazil has now completely eliminated the Texan Navy, but their one melee unit hasn't moved. If I were Pedro, I would move one of the arsenal ships to the coast next to it, embark the power armor infantry, and take the city from the sea. But the AI is not smart enough to do that, except by accident. Brace yourself, folks. This is almost certainly the last picture of Tibet alive. Almost all of their units are dead, and an organic infantry sits at the gates of Lhasa. And Vietnam moves before Tibet, so there's nothing stopping them from taking Lhasa on the very next turn. Meanwhile, here's Western Sibir. Kamcha Khan has given up on building anything besides biotroopers, which is pretty cool, and he's sending all of them to fight Vietnam. If Sweden plays its cards right, it could take much of this area. Here we see an overview of GPT agreements between civs. Lots of civs are trading gold with each other. What's highlighted, however, is the fact that the Bucks have just signed a peace deal with Australia and are giving Parks over 800 gold per turn. Holy shit! That's on top of 246 gold per turn they're giving to the Blackfoot from an earlier peace treaty. Nice. This is it, folks. A legend has died. With the fall of Lhasa, Songtsen Gampo of Tibet is eliminated in 20th place. Tibet started off with a decent smattering of cities, only to lose all of them to the Mughals, Mongolia, and Vietnam. Sorry for that pause. For a very long time, their final city was surrounded by a protective Vietnamese carpet, and the two nations forged a beautiful symbiotic relationship. At one point, Tibet even managed to found a city in an area left empty after Kiev was destroyed by a nuclear missile. Unfortunately, that city was captured by Sibir, and now Vietnam has betrayed the erstwhile ally it protected for so long. Rest in peace, Tibet. At least you tried. F. In before top 10 anime betrayals becomes a meme. Anyway, life goes on. What can you do? The Boer Navy attack on Columni appears to have been repelled. For now. Vietnam seems to have lost its air superiority in this area, and many of the cities are beginning to regain their HP. Vietnam is launching a counterattack to retake Baghdad and Pasargada, but Kruger is not concerned because even if the Trung sisters take those cities, the Boers will take them back in no time at all. In Anatolia, the biggest news is that Sweden has captured Tigranasyrta. That means that Finland is down to 4 cities. Even worse for Urho Kekkonen is that Gustavus has negotiated open borders with the Boers and is sending a pair of melee units down to capture Hebron. How far will Sweden go to eliminate their mortal enemy? Screw you guys, I'm not even narrating this part. Farther along, Sibir has captured Bomda again after a brief period where it seemed Vietnam had secured the city. Well, it was nice while it lasted, but drink up, boys and girls. Here's a view of northern Korea where it appears Sejong has begun pumping out biotroopers. That should be a good sign for many of our Korea fans and a bad sign for any Yakuts. And here's the Korea-Inuit border, which is nice to see, where the Inuit have a strong land army and no navy, and Korea has a useless navy, it's all submarines, and no land army. A war here would probably go in Ekanik's favor pretty quickly. Australia and Japan is heavily fortified, but that's not surprising, given that Australia has a full unit carpet and is sending units as peacekeepers to far-flung lands. Brazil continues to falter in its attack on Texas. I was beginning to think we might have a double elimination this part, but Brazil still isn't moving its lone melee unit. And finally, here's the Sweden-Iceland border. Iceland clearly has a lot more units, but some of Sweden's army is beginning to return from Finland's campaign. The next part may well be Iceland's last chance to pounce on Sweden while it's stretched thin, and if Ingolfur doesn't take that opportunity, it could be the nail in the coffin for Iceland's already slim chances of victory. Here's a map of all the ongoing wars and hostile relations. A double line means hostile and at war. A single line means hostile and not at war. Almost all of the current wars are against Tibet, which evidently still has a unit or two walking around. Our first statistic is total number of policies adopted. The Boers lead with 75, which by my calculations is 7 more than the total number of policies that can possibly be adopted. So I'm not sure what's going on here, since 68 is the max number of policies. That means Vietnam and the Inuit also have all of them. The civs with the fewest policies are Texas, Hawaii, the Kimberley, and Sri Lanka with 49 each. There's still a lot more than a human would ever adopt in a typical playthrough, a complete ideology tree and almost 6 additional full policy trees. Everyone has frankly an absurd amount of happiness, and the boars lead the pack with almost 3,000. I would assume that they're constantly in a golden age, considering that's friggin' crazy. At the bottom of the pack is of course Tibet, which somehow still has 27 happiness despite being dead. To me IRL for me IRL. Korea, Australia, the Inuit, and the boars have all finished the tech tree. It says the boars have one less, but I know for a fact they're all finished. Everyone else still has a long way to go. Of the living civs, Texas is the least advanced and is still a whopping 49 techs behind the leading civs, who have reached the end of the tech tree pretty much well before the hiatus even occurred. The religion overview shows that the boars are the most successful at spreading their religion, having converted 14 cities. Unfortunately, leg deism is stuck at 1 and will probably only go down from there. And to conclude this episode, we have the religion map. It's clear that Boer Lutheranism is spread quite rapidly, but we can see that the Blackfoot and their Arianism has all the time in the world and all the room it needs to become a major religious power. Anyway, it's been a pleasure narrating this part, a part with an elimination no less. As always, you can find me on r/CivAI Games, which I strongly encourage everyone to check out. And last but not least, don't forget to press F for Tibet. This has been Admiral Cloudberg giving you the narration for this part, and I'm Dawkinzz, I almost forgot, giving you the audio narration. We hope you enjoyed this part, and we'll see you next time.